Well, I'm kind of just interested in chatting about recent AI developments. We consume so much AI news every week, and it's kind of exhausting to go through all this AI news, but I feel like picking the best nuggets out of it and chatting about it with someone else that's really passionate about AI, that's what I'm into it for. What about you?
I really like the idea of being able to have some type of pressure to constantly build things because, like you said, so many tools out there, so many opportunities to build that you kind of like lose focus, and then it's easy to just let things drift by. But having a regular cadence of trying to like build with the tool, experiment with the tool, and then put something out there with a little bit of pressure to have like a time commitment really helps structure the way I go through this. Plus, there's so much content around these are the newest models. This is the news that I find there's no real practical examples of what can be done with it beyond deep dive tutorials, which I'm not always interested in consuming. So this feels like a nice intermediary where we get to play with something, try it out, but it's not hyper technical nor too surface level.
It's like a little bit more deeper than like a Twitter demo that you see online, but like not as much as a full implementation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily as flashy, but you do get a little more depth to it. It's nice.
Maybe a little more honest too. It's like here's the code, here's
Exactly.
exactly what it's doing. Yeah.
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 Can poke holes in it. We know it's not like the best of 20 takes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just gonna be so cool to make AI experiments every single week that do something useful or interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that will compound on itself, and the demos will only get better over time.
Absolutely. And then even just consolidating a community around this type of thing where people will be able to experiment with it, maybe do their own derivatives of it and see what they can come up with.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Rock, paper, scissors, or who goes first? Or do you want to fire up your demo?
I'll fire my demo. I'll go first. Why not? I think I don't know if you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna think it's cool, but I don't think you're gonna like it. Okay. Well, for those that don't know, this is a app that I built. That's kind of for the podcast. It'll actually have the transcript. I should just have that going right now because why not? So I can pick a tab, pick this, and maybe that'll actually work. I don't know. Anyway, that's gonna go in the background. But what I actually have here is this. And I don't know why it came down here, but all right. Give me a podcast theme.
AI video gen. Yeah, text to video.
Text to video. All right, we just hit that. Hit start podcast. I hope the audio comes through for you. Basically, I cloned you in Elevenlabs. Just
You
like
monster.
just like you said yesterday, you didn't want. So, but I have you in Elevenlabs. I have me in Elevenlabs, and I have a guest, and it basically just makes a podcast. It uses DSPy to generate a whole podcast episode essentially, and then speak it all out with Elevenlabs, and it works shockingly well. And it's actually kind of crazy because I only gave it like 40 seconds of you talking on one of your YouTube videos or Twitter demos, actually, I think it was, of Open Interpreter. It's actually really good. So
It's all out there.
I know, right? So I probably should have gotten your written permission to do this first, but here we are.
It's fascinating to see how AI is transforming into video content. This technology
It's actually
not only
pretty good.
saves time, but also opens up new creative possibilities for content creators.
Man, it even has like some like cadence.
It does. It's impressive.
Absolutely.
That's creepy.
The ability of AI to convert text into video is a game changer. It allows creators to focus more on storytelling and less on the technical aspects, truly revolutionizing the content creation landscape.
And then we have a guest on here which you can modify and make it whatever voice you want to. Initially, I cloned Andre Carpathy's voice, then I realized I probably shouldn't do that. So now it's just a standard Elevenlabs voice.
Democratize content creation.
Man, yours sounded really like you were doing the podcast voice.
So I actually put it in the prompt of Elevenlabs, and I put in there, I was like, it's a podcast voice, and it kind of went with that. So I don't know. I think
It
Absolutely.
works. It's
And
got
it's
that
fascinating.
sultry, I'm whispering into the microphone type vibe.
That's literally what I was doing. Last night. I was just like speaking into my mic really closely. Like it's the wrong thing. But Elevenlabs has a thing. I don't think we actually want to do this now, but Elevenlabs has like professional voice cloning, but you have to have an hour of voice content for your own voice, and it makes it like really good.
Oh man,
It's really high quality audio. So something we could
that
do
might
at
be
some
something we
point.
explore.
Yeah, right.
yeah. We'll give it a time, but I say we explore that when we get there.
I agree. But that's pretty much my demo. I'm going to stop sharing that. But I will explain a little bit. So it's basically just using DSPy to generate a prompt for another language model call to actually make the transcript. So it takes like the theme we give it here, and then it takes the like meta prompt of you're going to generate prompts to come up with a single transcript for a podcast. It takes all of that, runs it through language model, takes that, runs it through Elevenlabs, and actually WebSocket streams the audio back for lower latency and then plays it directly in the browser. But yeah, I kind of threw that together in like 2 hours. I was really impressed that it came together so quickly. But yeah, there's my demo.
Which one did you go with to generate the script?
GPT-4o. I wanted to use Claude, but couldn't figure it out in the 2 hours I had, so I just kind of like went with GPT-4o, which is not my favorite model, but...
Did you have it set up where it's just like a fast API endpoint and then takes in whatever prompt, goes to the Python backend and sends off?
Yep. Just takes a prompt with a web, so it's all WebSocket. So it takes a WebSocket message, takes that WebSocket, and then takes the message, runs it through its little pipeline, and then just streams audio back. And then we actually wait on the browser side to wait until the audio is finished playing. And then once the audio is finished playing, then we can start the process again. If I was to do it again, I'd probably start it before it ended so that there's actually less latency, but then it could start to stack on top of each other. But yeah, this is where this is. And so at some point, we could generate a whole transcript. We could just not even be here and just have a podcast roll on its own, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, for absenteeism, just a little bit of slop.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let me fire up this one. Okay, so my favorite open source repo, Open Interpreter, I just made a few changes, nothing too crazy, just added a little bit of functionality to it in a throwaway branch, so not going to merge to main, don't you worry. And then when you add it all, I always thought, oh man, I would love to automate some stuff. So I made a script called AI commit. What AI commit does is it takes the git diff, feeds it to an LLM, and then comes up with some options as to what the commit message should be. Oh. By default, I'm using Ollama locally with Llama 3.1, and then you just cycle through and select the message you want, or you can regenerate if you don't like it and you want some new ones. Now, in order to get a general idea of like whether this will actually be like performant or not, I actually added the ability to do analytics, where it will time how long it takes to go through. So it'll show you when it spits it out. It took 3.5 seconds using Ollama and Llama 3.1. So I tested out a few different models to see how it would go, and I'm like, all right, that's pretty neat, but like, I really wanted this to save time, not just like remove cognitive load. So what I did as well is I added the ability to query Grok. Of course. And there you go. 0.76 seconds.
That's crazy.
It uses 3.1 AP instant, so the same model running locally, but in a fifth of the time. And then you'll get a few options. And I'm like, this is sweet. And you just like arrow through. This uses fuzzy finder. So if you're like, I really want one that says terminal, it'll narrow it down for you. But then I thought, not everyone likes the arrow keys, because like your fingers are on the keyboard with the keys. So you might want to have Vim support. So with this, you can use J and K to cycle through.
Oh, that's so cool.
Or even to make it a little bit more efficient, for some people, you can pass the num flag, and what it'll do is it'll generate the messages with numbers beside it, so you can actually press the number of the one you want to commit, so you don't even have to cycle through.
I love that you added multiple options. That's like huge, because so many of these tools are just like, let me just take a pile of text and I'll generate you something, and here you go. But you're like, let's make 4, pick your favorite, which I love.
Yeah, here, let me just pull up the code really fast. So yeah, so pretty straightforward, just those arguments I showed, pass into argparser. For the analytics, we have time. Basic prompt, this is where I think a lot of optimization could be made. If they pass in Grok, query Grok. If not, query Ollama. One thing that I wanted to raise as like a general advice for people who are working with local models is I've actually set up a local environment variable for fast Ollama model, because when you change the model you use with Ollama, it actually has to load into memory. So the first query of the day is always the slowest. But if you ever change, so say I went from Llama 3.1 over to Nemo, that latency is actually a lot higher than if you just stick with one. So by setting an environment variable, I can always use the same model. And if I want to update it to like the new hot thing that gets released, I just update it in my Z shell config rather than having to update all the scripts. So this little OS get environment variable has been used across like a lot of my scripts, and I find it really just increases performance. So it's one of those cool things.
That's so cool. And I love that you have like different model support right off the top. Like that's so neat. And Grok being 0.7 seconds to generate 4 different completions with the same model. That's wild.
Yeah, man, I really like it.
What was the hardest part of building that?
Honestly, this was easy. That was the thing. I originally just had it where there was not all these variables. It was just basic key support with Olama, and then adding extra features was pretty straightforward. I used Claude to help me just assemble it, where I just put the script in and be like, I want to add this feature, spit it out. The whole time commitment to this was like probably an hour. And that included me spending a fair bit of time reading the FCF docs to figure out the way I wanted the prompt to come up, because I wanted like a little border and I wanted a nice color and have it centered. So it was just, most of the time was in the UI, which could definitely be adjusted by people. And I actually had a few thoughts on how people could customize it to fit their use case. I feel it's really important to work with local LLMs because a lot of businesses are like, no, can't call LLMs. Like, no data leaves the premises type thing. So by having it local, we can actually increase people's efficiency without relying on services like OpenAI. And along those same lines of working in a business setting, I think it'd be cool to add commit templates, because sometimes people say, oh, you got to start with like the branch name or the Jira ticket number, or if it's a bug fix versus a new feature. So you can add that to it. You can add more of a verbose diff summary. So instead of just the commit messages, you can actually have the LLM output what the changes were made, so someone can get a general idea. I think adding an interactive mode could be cool, where you actually select the message and then you can tweak it. Like maybe it's like 90% of the way there, but you want to include something else or remove something else. Instead of regenning over and over, you can just take one and tweak it. Or there's even the possibility of passing like some previous commits to add more context to the LLM, so it gets a general idea of like how it got there. So maybe you made a change, but it was because of what's been happened previously. So it can say like revert the change that's been happened rather than just this change happened. And even just changing, like I said, how it's actually displayed, because this worked for me. I thought this was nice, but it's not for everybody.
It looks great. You know what I would want out of this is I have the hardest time generating descriptive PR text. Like, it's like, well, what did you do in this PR? I'm like, I don't know. I just threw like 8 different files together and did this and did that. So I have to like go read through all of my code and make like a description for my PR on GitHub. And it would be cool if you could take all of the commits in that current branch and generate some sort of interesting summary based off of that and use that for your GitHub. That'd be pretty cool.
Fully agree. And I know both of us have worked at places where git commit messages aren't necessarily enforced or used very well, or sometimes you might get just an emoji or a very irrelevant sentence. And not every company cares about their commit history being clean, but as we move into higher use of AI, analyzing code bases and working with it, I think it's going to become even more important. So by taking the cognitive load, passing it to an AI to begin with, it's going to allow AI that analyzes the history of how a code base got to where it is to be more effective. So I think since this doesn't add any extra work to the user, arguably takes away work. I know, especially using Grok, like you just save so much time that it makes my life more efficient, that this is going to have like a positive impact on how AI interacts with code a lot more moving forward. So I think this is something that could be implemented relatively easily. Plus, it's just like, it's one component of my Git flow that I no longer have to think about. And if I automate some other part of the Git flow, it could call this. Like now it's just, like I said, AI commit, and then you have this part taken care of. So if we have an AI go through, make changes, commit changes, it can call this script, and we can have a little bit of granular control over how it will impact the commit message. And then all of a sudden our Git history gets nice and pretty.
That's so cool. I also like, what about an idea of like AI context enrichment in general? Like, what if you had this thing go through every file in your code base and rename the file and add doc strings and add like text to the top that says exactly what it does, but renames the file name too. And so, I mean, your whole code base just gets this rich context for the future of all these different AI coding models. And it can just see your whole repo, see the commit messages that are all, have great descriptions as part of them. It has great branch names, has great file names. And I mean, I don't know, I feel like that would do a lot for some of these models, because even like file naming itself is hard too. I've seen like how many main.pys are in, like one Python repo. Like maybe they could be more specific.
Yeah, totally. Naming is one of the hardest things in programming. And as we rely more on AI to be a part of this process, having it be consistent and like standardized there, and even within a company, you can set a prompt to say, these are our best practices. This is how we want to approach things. And then you just get consistent because everyone's going to interpret instructions differently. If you and I are both given the same task, we'll probably, get different comprehension of what we're expected to do. So by having an AI relatively consistently with like a consistent prompt, approach everything and just do the big renaming, totally agree. It'll make it like more semantically rich, easier for like discoverability, and it just reduces the cognitive load. There have been so many times I've been in like a dev planning meeting when they're just like, what should we name this? And people go back and forth being like, well, it's not really a generator. And it's like we're spending so much valuable mental capacity on such a silly thing that AI can just offload. So yeah, get AI to rename all the things.
And also just let AI pick what it should be named, and that's probably the thing that's most useful to it in the future. Right? Like maybe coming up with some clever name is fun for us, but for the AI itself, it wants something that it understands, and maybe if it names it, it would understand it better, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we can get clever and creative with it, but since AIs are all probabilistic, that's probably the best name for it. So
that makes a lot of sense. Man, that's super cool.
There was one weakness with this that I found, though, that I think still needs to be addressed, is when you rename files. Because like the git diff of a file rename is the complete deletion of one file and the complete creation of another file. So all of a sudden you get this random commit message being like, implemented functionality A, B, C, D, when really it's just, no, it's a file rename. So I think there's something to be said there about either updating the prompt or updating the way it's approached, that just the raw git diff by itself isn't the optimal way to do this. But I mean, for a quick hack, this definitely has relieved me from that one task of my dev workflow.
I think it does that too for like even moving a file places. If you move things between directories, doesn't it do that too? Or it it says that it deleted 100%. One and then it created another one.
Yeah. So yeah, big weakness there.
You can just have like a pre-step, right? Like a pre-step that just takes just the file names and where they're located, and just sees if they were renamed or moved. And if they were, then either just exclude it from the git diff or just have a teeny tiny sentence that's put in that just said this file was moved from here to there or whatever.
Yeah.
That's super
Yeah,
cool.
I really hope people take this and build upon it, because there are a lot of those improvements that can be made that are really specific to people's use cases. And as like we progress into a world where software is customized for the user, I really think we should start with the developer having their workflow customized for them. And little scripts like this, like one thing that I really want to like have this kind of lead to is to have people feel more empowered and inspired to just build their own scripts. Like make your workflow perfect for your own use case. Because now with LLMs, this was super fast and easy to put together, and it's a starting block for someone to build upon. But if we can start having people write more scripts, ideally open source those scripts, and then just share how they automate small portions of their day, people can like tweak it, make derivatives, and start having more cognitive capacity towards like the important problem solving rather than the mundane tasks of just like going through the flow. Like initial onboarding with the company takes days, and it should be like you power on a laptop, run a script, put in like your universal development config from wherever, like your own dot file, and then all of a sudden you have an environment that's set up for you, optimized for you, that automates the way your workflow has always been.
I love that. And have all of the files, code bases, like in a vector database, and then it generates a course for you based on what all the information is. I would love that at some of my old jobs, these giant gross code bases. It's like, wait, what's doing what where? Please tell me.
Yeah, and then we gamify it a bit to get people all fired up.
That'd be so cool. What's your scripting language of choice?
I've been using Python a lot. I was using Shell for a bit, but because Ollama has a pretty powerful Python library, it's just really quick and easy to just implement that in. I'm going to try to actually go through a lot of my scripts and abstract away the AI call, because I think if I could just have one script that's just like call Ollama and then just call that in a script, I think that would be a lot more efficient. But right now, I'm still building like the initial foundation. I haven't got to like that next level of abstraction yet. So I think I have a few more scripts to build before I'm at the point where I need that. But I mean, man, that's an hour of your time, and all of a sudden you have like nice isolated single responsibility scripts.
Yeah, that's great. And making them composable, right? Making all these little blocks that you can use in future scripts. It's like script Legos. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. And that's exactly what it needs. Yeah, composability, have these things work together, and then all of a sudden you get a really powerful, complex system just made of these little bits that do one thing really well.
I wonder if there's like a cool repo you could have. It's called like the script toy chest or something, and it has like, you know, a box of Legos and has all the components, and you can even call the directory Legos, and it has all the little bits that go into the scripts, right? And then you have the actual toys that are generated from, or that are actual working scripts made out of all the Legos or something. I'm running on it. And having one repo that has a lot of different scripts that all kind of share functionality and share pieces and parts would be really interesting.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to be putting this one up on GitHub under my automations repo, and I hope that kind of spurs on to do more stuff like that. There's one thing I actually wanted to share on the note of local models. Basically, what I did was I ran that AI commit script 3 times with 3 different models, and then I tracked the time it took for each one, and then the quality of output, where 3 is like, good, this is what I would do. 2 is, it's not that good, and 1 was wrong. And luckily, the Llama 3.1, Mistral Nemo, and Gemma 2, none of them had a 1. They all had at least okay commit messages. Nemo, which is a 12B model, did have the best, slightly, but you can see from the time, Llama 3.1 blazed through it, while Nemo was slower, and even Gemma 2 was kind of slow. I expected better from a 9B. But this kind of also demonstrates how I mentioned that the new model getting loaded into memory takes significantly longer. So using Ollama has been awesome, but just from the nature of having to put a model into memory has to be taken into account. So that's kind of reaffirming my suggestion of having your local model be defined somewhere and just used consistently. Because like this, going from like 11.5 seconds down to 4 was massive. Like, I don't want to sit around for 11 seconds waiting for a commit message. Like, I can write something a lot faster than that. But having it at like 4 seconds, 2 and a bit is okay. Or use Grok so it's sub 1.
I want to see how
I just thought,
Gemma 2B would do on this.
yeah, someone actually yesterday recommended I give Gemma 2B a run on my Raspberry Pi, but it was ranked 106th on LMSys Arena, while Llama 3.1 was like 30th or something like that. So it's just like the degradation quality is going to be noticeable. But I mean,
I'm curious to see what the difference would be though, because even if it could score a 1.5, it'd be pretty cool because it would load into memory so much faster.
yeah. And I say, and there that would definitely solve for the use cases where it has to be local, because that's the thing. If I'm not under the requirement of operating locally, I'm going to use Grok. Like, Grok is fast.
That totally makes sense. Cool. You want to talk about things you might have missed in tech this week?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to. So, one thing that I don't think people have heard of or might have missed is the announcement of Homebrew. Not Homebrew, the package manager, but Homebrew, the AI lab. It's from the people who made Jan, and they opened up a lab that's based, I think, Singapore, Taiwan, and Hanoi. And I have a lot of expectations for them. I have high hopes. They've been doing an awesome job working in public, building in public, their Discord servers, just like this beehive of activity. That's been really cool to see. Everyone I've interacted with that works there has been a good person. Having the name conflict with Homebrew, though, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, that's fair. It's kind of a busy name, that one. You got the Homebrew Computer Club and Homebrew, the package manager. But Jan does crazy cool stuff. I love that they're open source and they're trying to do, the best local model serving. And they're just expanding. It's really interesting to see. I love that they changed the logo of it too. I think it was like the
it
wave,
went
and
from
now
the
it's
waving hand to the...
or something like that. It's kind of cool.
We started as an open source team working on Jan, a personal AI. Along the way, we encountered challenges in product, software, hardware, and even data center levels. These challenges have inspired us to think bigger to find better solutions. And I absolutely love that. I love the fact that they're just like leveling up, trying to conquer bigger challenges.
It's so cool. That's so cool. I've been a fan of them for a while now. Is their app just going to update one day and it's just going to be like way more powerful?
Oh, I hope so. How about you? What have you thought people missed this week?
I think that a lot of people missed this, including me. I missed this until I saw it in an email newsletter, but Cohere dropped something interesting. Did you see their prompt tuner that they dropped?
Headlines only. Haven't dove into it.
I think it's fascinating. Well, you know that I love prompt optimization. I'm all for DSPy and some of these really interesting things. They built a prompt tuner. They do not use DSPy under the hood. They actually built their own implementation based off a Google DeepMind paper. That paper is called OPro. It's a using large language models as optimizers. But it's really interesting. I'm just going to share my screen and show you a quick thing. Let's see here. But yeah, like this is Prompt Tuner, and it's just on the Cohere dashboard, and I'm just using a default one they have here. But like write an article, topic, blah, 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 business appropriate. But what's really interesting is you can like specify your criteria. And yeah, here's your criteria. So it has to end with a call to action. Your article's needed for feedback in the comments. It's appropriate for the requested topic. Set your word count. I mean, it's really cool. You can set it to JSON too, and I'll parse it for JSON. Make sure it's valid JSON output. And then you hit optimize prompt, and it just goes off to the races, which is pretty cool. And so it does 10 different loops through the whole thing. And they released a blog post about it, and they showed that there's like a pretty substantial improvement with each step. And once you get to step 10, I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it was like a 9% improvement on average or a 10% improvement, which doesn't sound like a lot on the surface. But when you really think about it, if you can get 10% better performance out of any language model you use, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty wild. And so like I firmly believe that humans aren't the best prompt engineers. I think AI can talk to AI better than humans can. But yeah, I just think it's a great step in the right direction. Claude has the prompt engineer too. Works really well. I use it pretty much every time I want to generate a complicated prompt and start there. So I'm glad to see Cohere's doing something. And it's really neat to see that it does these different iterations. It goes through, I mean, it's going through all its steps right now, but you can see it get more impressive each time, which is really cool. Like they actually have like a little git diff type of thing, and it I don't know, it's kind of interesting. They actually have all like the stats too, so they show you like what it scored on. They use Command R to score each thing, and so you have your different relevant scores, whatever else that you set up here, and they rank it based off of this. Anyway, super fascinating. I'm super into prompt optimization, and I'm just excited that Cohere's taking a step in that direction.
Nice. Is it available local, or is it like API or web interface only right now?
I think it's just their web interface. It's part of their little dashboard, but still really cool. I would love for maybe that's a script we should make. It's just like a local lightweight prompt optimization. You know, maybe it's just like PO space, add a quote, write your short prompt, put an end quote on it, hit enter, and then you could just have it go through a number of cycles where it just keeps feeding into itself and keeps testing its outputs and seeing what the score is, and end up with a great prompt on the other side. Copy paste it wherever you need to. Be pretty cool.
I mean, DSPy on steroids.
Yeah, right. It'd be pretty cool. Well, cool. Do we talk homework now?
I would be interested in voice agent, like something that you can actually talk to your computer and have something done.
Yeah, I would love to get the Open Interpreter 01 in this thing, so we can have a third guest that just kind of like interrupts us. Throws its slop at us, but that sounds great. I would love to have a third AI co-host on this.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep the focus around something where incorporating a voice input agent that is a part of our conversation.
That sounds like a great starting point.
Yeah, and creativity there. You can go whatever route you want. It may or may not continue to exist in it, depending on how we do. Maybe they'll merge them, but
maybe.
I think that's a good starting point.
And I like the idea of having like a whole bench full of different agents, right, that can do different things. I really want at some point in time to have a research agent that we could be like at the start of the episode, be like, oh man, wait, what did Cohere drop again? And then we'd be like, well, hold on. Hey, Jerry, can you go check out to see what Cohere's been up to? Just give me a quick summary. And it goes off and it just does its thing. And then once it has its report, it just rudely interjects and tells us what it found. That sounds great to me for some reason.
Nice. Well, it sounds a lot more practical than my heckle bot, which is going to be like, you know those two Muppets that were always hanging out in the bleachers? Just
yeah. No,
might get too chaotic.
Funny.
We'll see.
That would be pretty funny, though. It would be pretty funny. It would just keep yelling at me to stop mumbling. I love that. It's great. Well, good stuff, man. This is a good episode.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You got me hooked on this command line now. Like, that sounds...
Dude,
sounds
it's
fun.
addictive.
Good stuff, man.
Cool, man.
All right, man. I'll
Enjoy
see
your
you
breakfast.
in an hour. Thank you.
Have a
See
good one,
ya.
dude.